was the belief that women weren't intellectually superior to men, right? Women couldn't bode a challenge to man's prowess. That became, and I'm going to disconnect the phone in a second. That became challenged and discarded. There's currently, There's currently a social belief that homosexuals stand outside of sort of the vein of recognition. They're second class or second rate or second best citizens, right? They're citizens to an extent. They are recognized, their concerns are recognized to an extent, but they're not like members of the heterosexual community, and that too will change, right? Those who want to maintain the oppression of the heterodox discourse, to be technical, those marginalized, they have to create a narrative in which that's legitimized, right? So it becomes a top-down. This is homogenized. So to be technical, homogenized power creates the narrative to keep the those marginalized populations in their place, right? Homogenized power constructs this narrative, right? They create this narrative. They really create a lie. They create a lie to keep the marginalized populations in place. I was just watching Bill Maher did his Yahoo bit a couple days ago, and it was genius. It was actually, he gave Obama super PAC $1 million, but aside from that, the comedy was just right on the money. And he said something along the lines that you can't be. He didn't understand how you could be a Republican and also be part of this sort of impoverished, more marginalized, maybe underemployed or unemployed community. And he said that members within the community viewed themselves as temporarily not millionaires or soon to be millionaires. When the real fact is that there's great likelihood that the vast majority of all of you, of all of us, will never be millionaires. It's not in the cards for us. But this discourse has been created by those in power that we're all gonna potentially be millionaires and there's money out for all and trickle down and blah, 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 blah. Of course, I'm not a comedian, so I can't say it in a comedic way. But basically what Bill Maher was saying is that this narrative was created by those within orthodoxy, those within hegemonized power, to lie to the marginalized population to get them not to revolt, right? To accept their second-class citizenship, to get them to accept their impoverishment through this sense of I'm almost there, when in fact you couldn't be further from the truth. The idea is to fight this, right? The artist from the marginalized, right? Now this hopefully will make sense, right? What ends up happening is from this marginalized community arises the artist, right? The actor. And of course they have an artist and an actor that they've created as well, right? And now it's battle between the artists and the actor, right? It's the artists and actors, plural, from hegemonized power, battling artists and actors, plural, from marginalized populations. Their artists are already in play. They're already in play, right? This is the PR firms, this is the huge conglomerates, this is multimedia, this is the internet, this is commercial saturation via super PAC, pay-to-play mentality, right? Their artists, their narratives are well orchestrated. This is a superbly oiled machine. The question becomes, and now I'm taking it a little bit beyond Nietzsche, but I just want you to see the contemporary social connection to what Nietzsche is saying and what's a fact now of our reality is where are our artists? Who are the people who are challenging this narrative, right? Very few people, right? Bill Maher definitely did it, right? He is one of the artists that, in a comedic sense, that is challenging this narrative by making fun of it. Oh, you actually think you're going to be rich? Ha ha ha, you're not, right? right, it's disconcerting, it's discomforting for Bill Maher to say that, because it's like, wow, I mean, wow, no one wants to admit that, but the vast majority of people won't be, right? That's why it's the 99% and the 1%. The idea that somehow all of the 99 would then become 100 and we'd all have all this money is it's practically ridiculous. But the narrative is so strong and it's been so reinforced that it's hard to challenge that discourse unless you have people like Bill Maher. Now, me, I don't consider myself an artist per se, but this is an act against the narrative, right? This act of providing free distance education is an act against the institution of pay-to-play, but not pay-to-play political discourse, pay-to-pay educational discourse. What I'm doing right now is challenging the narrative that the way that you go about educating yourself is by paying. So me and many, many others are slowly creating a counter-narrative, right? This act becomes the counter. This act becomes the counter-narrative, right? So, as Nietzsche says, right, one conceals oneself in the presence of the unfamiliar. The powerful always lie. You have to put yourself in a position where you recognize, and I'll be honest right now, the truth is, I know that despite the fact that I'm putting all of this information out here for free consumption, that the vast majority of people won't take the time to watch these videos. I'll never have the big ratings. But the idea is I tell the lie that this is actually going to do some good. And it will for very, very niche-specific communities and individuals. But the idea that it is at this point in time, maybe in the future, at this point in time, going to present a real threat to the pay-to-play educational system is a bit of a lie. Right? It's a huge behemoth that's been millennia in the making. And we, sort of global free educators, are attempting to fight that structure. It's a bit audacious, right? There's quite a bit of hubris, there's quite a bit of ego that's needed to even think that what we're doing as individuals could collectively, you know, present any real threat to the institution at large. Okay, so on the next page, page 69, what you need to, I'm looking at, hopefully this made sense, right? What you need to recognize is the separation, right? You have the artist, you have the concealed aspect, and then the understood. There's a separation, right? This is inward, in a sense, and this is outward. Okay, the great nihilistic, this is a quote from note 379 in the text, the great nihilistic counterfeiting through artful misuse of moral values. Art as the work, art as the work, as the product, as the consequence, the result, right? Art as the work of the, quote, pure free-willed subject. Art as the, I love this bit, right? Art as the work, as the product of the pure free-willed subject. Misunderstanding of objectivity. It's pretty dense. Let's try and make sense of what this means. First, we have to recognize what's rather obvious, right? We have the concealed aspect is an inward representation of the artist that is too complex to be understood. The motivating factors that drive me to do this, me researching, digesting Nietzsche, the way in which I construct my own personal notes in order to present it in a clear fashion, is for you, for your consumption, is too complex to make sense of. It's the methodology in which the artist does his or her work. You can imagine that two very skilled artists are given the same thing to draw, but the way in which they begin the drawing, one might begin with the nose, the other person might begin with the ear, the way in which they will achieve mastery, both will be different with respect to the artist. That aspect of the artist, the methodology, the way in which the artist goes about producing the final product, the artwork.